Alright, see if I can get in any kind of ride here and review the shock update with the new springs before I get rained on, because yup, and I'm probably tired of me bitching about the rain, but it really is depressing in a lot of ways. Motorcycle is it's kind of my only real hobby. I work, watch some of my TV shows and stuff, and then I'm out on the bikes. And so that hobby is extremely weather dependent. When you live in an area that rains 4 to 5 days a week without any kind of let up, it gets depressing after a while. So yeah, so I figured I was the smart guy because I was going to take off. I got like 6 weeks of vacation a year, and I never use it. Between a mother-in-law with pretty much every health issue in the book, and 5 dogs and all that stuff, it's kind of hard to get away on vacation because it costs us a fortune to have to pay someone to come in and take care of her medically and board the dogs and all that shit. So we don't get out a lot. So I end up having like just buttloads of vacation, and if I don't use it by the end of the year, I lose it. And so I'm always in this quandary what to do. So used to just take off December. I'd be working from home, it'd be a staycation, but if somebody needed something at work, I'd jump in and do it. But I was told, well, you can't do that anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'll take off every Friday during the riding season, August, September, in October and stuff, and I've got 3-day weekends. I can go riding every weekend, and yeah, it rains almost every freaking weekend. So anyway, let's see if we can get a little ride in here. Gonna have to gas up somewhere. Anyway, we got the shocks installed, so we got Ohlins on the back. I've got the springs for my body weight, because that was one problem I had when I ordered them. They said they couldn't get it with the right springs. It was going to put it on back order. I'm like, just ship me the shocks and I'll find the springs elsewhere. So I did, and so now I've got the springs. I've got them. The sag, I'm within a couple millimeters. Unfortunately, I was supposed to get up to GMD CompuTrack for a full suspension setup. Had an appointment, and then it was like 90% chance of rain and heavy showers and thunderstorms, so I canceled. Turned out to be the one Saturday it didn't rain, despite the fact that they said it would. So I missed my window. We ended up spending the whole day at the dealership getting Donna's monster. And so now I've got he can't get me until October, like son of a bitch. So I've set it up as good as I can, and it does feel firmer, more compliant. Before, when I had the Ohlins, it was definitely an improvement over stock with the springs that it came with, but it was still just not, I had to put like all the preload in just to kind of get the sag hopefully where I wanted, but then the springs were kind of binding a little bit. It wasn't as good as I had to get the right springs. And I guess maybe that's one you were talking about yesterday or the other day, whatever it was, about linear versus progressive springs. And so when you're setting ride height and you're trying to get it, to a certain millimeter, maybe one benefit, if there is one with progressives, is that, with a linear spring, you can adjust the ride height, but only to a certain extent, because once you get past a certain point, the spring isn't pushing back any harder, and so you don't get as much range with a linear spring, and that's why you have to buy the spring rate for your weight, and then you're in the range and you can adjust it as much as you want, but you got to get the right spring. With the progressives, you can technically have the wrong spring, but because it does get stiffer the more you compress it, you can usually, get the preload to get you the ride height. Of course, you still run into the problem of now the spring is in the stiffest portion of the spring, and it's going to be harsh, and and if your damping rates can't accommodate, there's a whole other list of issues, but I'm trying to find the silver lining there with progressives. So so there's that. So I've got the I've got the the right springs in there now, and so it is working. Feels pretty good so far. I've got the sag or the rebound set, so it actually kind of matches the front pretty damn well. I would say I'm at the 90% mark. So I wouldn't imagine when I do get up to Kent that, you know, he changes the preload by more than, I don't know, 1 or 2, 3 turns, if that, and maybe 1, maybe 2 clicks on the damping. I can't imagine it being any more than that. I think we're pretty damn close. And then we'll see how it, you know, how he feels the front is, and see if it thinks it needs more. Maybe we'll need some more. Anyway, that's what's going on with that. So I'm going to try to hit some twisties here, and I'm actually redo this video here because I just remembered that when I was doing the video, well, I guess it'll just be 30 frames a second, whatever. It's at 4K 30 instead of 4K 60. I usually prefer 60 for action stuff of riding, but I guess it's more about my talking and the vlogging and what I'm feeling and stuff than it is about the video quality. So I guess we'll just live with it and remember to reset it before the next video. But yeah, so far it feels more compliant. I don't feel it wanting to bottom out at all. It's definitely supporting the bike. You know, going to the Ohlins was definitely smoother, so there was that improvement, but it wasn't helping it as much as I was hoping initially, with the back end sagging and stuff like that. And that was because, you know, I knew when I bought the shocks I had the wrong spring. Ooh, front tire came up. I'm telling you, man, this new tune that I've been playing with, it really woke the bike up, man. I'm definitely not. I also notice I'm chewing up a little more fuel, but whatever. I was like worried about fuel economy. Don't care. Never did. Probably never will. If I drop 3 mpg on a bike, I don't give a shit. It's a motorcycle. This is a hobby. This is about passion and fun. The gas mileage is what it is. So long as it's not like I got a 60-mile range where if I go on a trip, I'm worried about getting to the next gas station. That's about the only time I care about fuel economy. Just going around these little turns, though, the bike definitely feels a little more poised. It feels a little sharper, probably because the back isn't sagging as much when I hit bumps and things. And it also maybe, yeah, front end started coming up again, man. This thing, well, you know what? It's also a cooler day right now. It's about 10 degrees cooler, so I'm sure I'm feeling a little bit of extra horsepower from the denser air. Although it is very humid, so I don't know. But my butt dyno, the bike feels great right now. And, you know, I could get it to wheelie before in second or in first, like in the stock form, with my, before I did the latest aggressive throttle mappings, when I just did the restrictions and a little bit of fuel trims. But I'd have to get it up around like 5,000 RPMs, kind of roll off the throttle and then kind of whack it and give it a tug, and it would definitely come up. Now in first, if I just give it gas, if I get hard on the gas in first, low down the revs, it just comes up on its own easily. If I turn off traction control, I have to actually be careful a little bit that it doesn't come up too far. And now, even with traction control on, when I'm just whacking the throttle in second, I'm not rolling off and, you know, load the front, and then, you know, I'm just getting on the gas hard in second. The front tires start to come up in the front, you know, the front end's doing that because the tires skimming the ground. It never did that before. So, a lot of that's from the tune. Some of it could be from the suspension. I mean, technically, if the suspension is, if the back isn't compressing, is not squatting as much, then it might being allow the bike to pivot on that back wheel and wheelie a little bit more. Instead of the back end squatting, it's holding firmer, and that's what's bringing the front end up. Probably a combination of the two, but I mean, there is a big difference in the acceleration. Not just up top where I was being limited, but even in the mid-range, it was a very slow, methodic, easing into the gas kind of thing, and now it's not. You give it gas and it just wants to go. So I'm going to pull over and get some gas here because my light is on. And then we'll pick back up and we'll go down over Beaufort Dam. Hopefully the sun will hold. Get a nice little scenic ride. There's a couple little twisties. If I don't have any traffic in front of me, I might be able to pick up the pace just a little bit, just to see how it feels. Of course, every fucking time. If I had a superpower, it would be finding the pump. My instinct is always to pull in, and whatever pump I pull in on is always out of order, like without fail. It's insane. If there was a way for that superpower to make me money, I would be a millionaire. So, alright, we'll be back in a moment. We're recording? There we go, now we're recording. Yeah, so, as I'm joking before about how my superpower is, no matter what pump I pull into, it's always the one that's broken. So then I swing around and go to that one, and as I got my gas cap off, I got my helmet off, I'm ready to fill. Please prepay inside for this pump only. Like, son of a bitch, it does not fail. So then I'm sitting there cursing into my helmet, put my helmet back on, gonna roll the bike over there, and I'm bitching and stewing, and this lady's just looking at me like I'm a crazy person. Perhaps I am. I just want to do what I want to do. I don't want to be inconvenienced. I just want to get on my bike and ride. I don't want to sit in the rain. And I know people, like I mentioned before, people are like, oh, enough about the rain, it rains. But, you know, when it's this much of a passion, when I don't have any other hobbies, really. You say, well, get other hobbies. Well, that's kind of why I bought the Mustang. That was one of the reasons. We didn't need 2 trucks, and I'm like, you know what? For the amount of time I'm not able to go ride, and I know there's people that are on adventure bikes going, pussy, ride in the rain. I'm riding nice bikes. I don't enjoy riding in the rain because you have to go slow. You got to be careful. It's no longer enjoyable. I want to go out and play, you know? So that's one of the reasons why I got the Mustang. It's like, well, on those days where it looks like it's going to rain, you know, I can't go as fast in the car, but I can go faster in the car in the rain than I can on the bike. And I can still go and have fun, and at least I'm not getting rained on and miserable, and, you know, all that shit. I gotta come home and clean the bike, get the grid off, make sure I oil the chain so the chain doesn't rust overnight sitting in the garage, and, you know, all that stuff. But it really is such a big, I mean, I just enjoy it. I mean, here's an example. You think about what you have invested in a hobby. I once went through and tried to add up what I've spent on bikes. So, the bikes, gear, tires, exhausts, carbon fiber, mods, basically everything but gas. I stopped counting when I got well over $250,000. That was also 6 years ago. That was like 9 bikes ago. So that's not a thing to brag. In fact, it's probably stupid that I would spend that much money on a bike. But that's how much I'm into this. Hence why it bothers me so much when the weather is just always shit. So enough about that. I'll try to move on. But I hope that puts it in a little bit of perspective. It's like, oh, if it was just like, oh, you had a bike and you've had the same bike for 20 years and it's just a side hobby once in a while. You go tool around town. For me, it's like, no, if I'm not working and it's weekend time, I am out on the bike. I want to be up in the mountains. I want to go to the Dragon. I want to go tear it up. I want to go have fun. I want to do a track day. So it bums me out when I can't do that. So anyway, what the hell was I talking about before? Oh yeah, so suspension. Yeah, it's just, yep, traction caught it. Front end was starting to come up. Same thing there. Just instant. Love it. This new map is great. And I think I got enough of the, I've been backing out the, it's a really cool contemporary house they're building there. It's definitely undercover. Well, I guess not undercover because it did say sheriff on the side, but from the front it looked a little incognito. So anyway, the tune, the latest tune I'm playing with here is definitely, I'm not throwing this on the dyno until I do the full exhaust. This tune feels great. The low RPM, you know, that little bit of, it's no more than a stock Ducati or a Super Duke or anything else that I've ridden. So, and it's less than like a Ducati 1198 because that thing has just so much more power that those little fluctuations down low when you're trying to be smooth, it's just, it's fine. I'll pull the plugs and just look at the colors, get an idea of where the mixture's at, but from the seat of the pants, It's very smooth, power's very linear and strong, and especially the 6 to 7,000, I took out a little bit of fuel that I originally put in, and that's something I was thinking about other Triumphs that I've seen where they're whatchamacallit, they're fueling, in the low end, because of all the emissions, the cruising range is usually crap, and it's not their fault, it's required by the EU. But usually when you get to like 100% throttle, usually the fueling's spot on. So what I did was I backed out. I think I had 5% fuel up there. I backed it down to just like 2 or something, just a little bit. I'd always rather have it be just a tiny bit rich than lean. And it seems to have improved that, and the timing changes now. It rushes faster from 6 to 7,000 more quickly than it used to. All right, kind of dive into this turn a little bit. I may need to soften the rear up just a little bit. Let this guy get out ahead of us. I want to get some space. But yeah, it's definitely very lungy. And so when you're up in the twisties, if you're just cruising along like I am now, I'm going from like 0 to maybe 4 or 5% throttle, you still feel a little bit of that snatchiness. I just don't care. Some people have to have like the smoothest bike ever. I came from a world that didn't have electronics. My first 20 bikes didn't have shit. They were, Ducati 1198s and super bikes and Street Fighter 1098, CBR 1000RR, TL 1000R, Super Duke. So I'm just used to very big speed triples, big, torquey, high horsepower bikes. And so I'm, that little bit of, feistiness, it's like, oh, whatever. To me, it's second nature. But the beauty of this is if you want to go, that's information, I want to go mode. So here, a little straightaway, you can look down, I go mode, rain, road, clutch, off throttle. Now I'm in road mode, and now it just purrs like a kitten. There's no snatchiness, there's nothing. When you whack the throttle, it still comes on strong, and it's still got that top end rush that Sport has. It's just 15% mellower in the mid-range. I don't know what that person, oh, they're riding around with sheetrock on their roof and they're holding it with their hands. Yeah, that's Georgia. Put it back in Sport. Yeah, Sport's just a little bit angrier down low. So the modes are very close once you're like really hard on the gas and you're over 5,000 RPMs at wide open throttle. They're going to be about the same, road and Sport, on my latest tune. The difference is getting up to that point, Sport is quite a bit sharper and there's just more urgency. Everything just happens that much quicker. Go up to third. A little windy up here. Beautiful view though. Lovely power. Very, very smooth, very progressive. Very sheriff's deputy right there. Nice. There's Lake Lanier. I guess, is it still summer or is it fall now? I don't know. End of summer, beginning of fall. A little windy. See a little choppiness to the water. It's very nice though. Oh well, I was hoping to be able to hit those twisties. There's not usually a cop there. That's unusual. Maybe there's been other people on bikes ripping through there. It's not a road where you want to get it wrong because it is narrow and you either come into oncoming traffic or you're going into a guardrail. But for the route that I am taking, it's probably one of the only little twisty bits. We are heading up to Old Town Cutlery. I just like to poke around. Don't really need any more knives and stuff, but I like to see if there's something new, something that catches my eye. And hopefully I'll be able to get there and then get back. I go for fish and chip. There's this place I used to love going to. British couple moved over with some of their family from the UK, started Wright's Fish and Chips, and you know, I mean proper British fish and chips. Nice little shop. Some British groceries and things, you know, you kind of can't get over here, but you want to go in and get, you know, mushy peas and fish and chips and curry pies, all kinds of good stuff, man. And I would go over there all the time. I would, like, once a week I'd be in that place getting fish and chips, maybe a battered sausage, get some mushy peas, and then I'd fill my backpack up. They'd have like all the different kinds of pies, shepherd's pies. They'd have potato onion pasties, all kinds of stuff. And I would just fill up my backpack with like $100 worth of frozen, like pre-made stuff that all you gotta do is throw it in the oven and, you know, cook it real quick kind of thing. Vegetable curry pie, that's some good stuff. And unfortunately, they were doing really, really well. They were going to start to franchise, then COVID hit. And we still try to go in whenever we could, support them. We love supporting like small businesses like that, especially when their product is just amazing. You go in there, and half the time, most of the people in there eating were British expats, you know, that had moved to the States. And you wouldn't expect it in this, you know, kind of rural part of Georgia. But man, they were making a killing. And supposedly they were going to be setting up a new location, a bigger location. But with COVID and stuff, that's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into it. But I used to go across the dam here to get to that place at least once a week. To where my parents would go in there like, is Dave okay? We haven't seen him in like a week or two. So, very cool people. That place just turned on to us by my buddy Russ, known as Bloke. He's the guy we got our blue pitty Poppy from. He does like rescues with mastiffs and stuff, but he took in some pitties because his friend that runs another rescue had some overflow, and she has turned out just to be the coolest dog. But unfortunately, Bloke, really interesting guy too. You look at him and you go, he's a bit brash, he's a bit blunt and in your face. And at first you're like, this guy thinks I'm a total tool and doesn't like me. And who knows, maybe he didn't. But you get to know him a little bit, and you see past that kind of gruff exterior. He's a real knowledgeable guy. I think he was in the military, and then he was a contractor, saw some shit in different parts of the world. He's just one of those guys that doesn't talk big, but he's one of those guys you really just don't want to mess with. He's the kind of guy that if you're in a pub and you got into a bar fight, he's absolutely the dude you'd want by your side. But he's also a really good rider. And first time I ever met the guy, he was on a GS 1150 or 1200 or some adventure bike with semi-knobbies, and I was on a Gixxer 750. It's probably like 13 years ago. And I'm like, I'm gonna go follow this old man and show him what's up. And in about 30 seconds, he disappeared in front of me down Wolf Pen Gap. Just left me behind like I was chained to a post. I was like, that was a humbling experience. So yeah, he turned us on to that place. He's like, if you want like proper fish and chips, he grew up in the UK and moved over here. He's like, this is the place you gotta go. If you're ever in the area, look up Wright's with a W, Wright's Fish and Chips. Hopefully there'll be their new opening in the new location pretty soon down in the Town Plaza, or some new complex they built in downtown Cumming. So, unfortunately, his house just went on the market. He will be moving. I think he said he was going to buy a house on the Isle of Man. He retired early, had a very successful business as a bike wholesaler for Mountain Motorsports and some other dealers, and he just decided to sell off the business and sell off the house, and him and his wife are moving back over to I guess Isle of Man was the last I heard. So good for him. I'll miss him. He's a solid dude. You can learn a lot riding and working on bikes and Triumphs. He's a really knowledgeable guy, and just fun to hang out with. But that'd be pretty cool. Maybe if we ever make it over for the Isle of Man TT, I can hit him up and be like, you got a corner of your living room I could throw a sleeping bag in and watch the race out here, on your front lawn? Pretty sure I won't be the only one with that plan. So yeah, so some updates on the channel. It's pretty cool. My channel's starting to pick back up. Revenue's picking up, views are up, memberships jumping, so something with the algorithms. Despite the fact that I do have a couple gun reviews now? Is it because I stopped doing a lot of the political stuff? This is the problem, because they're just not transparent. There's a lot of analytics that I can look at and see what trends and how many click-throughs and, you know, where do my views come from. But what YouTube guards very closely are the algorithms themselves. So I never really know, did I just get lucky and, you know, started picking back up again? Did I start to build a new audience after I deep sixed most of the gun videos that were getting most of my traffic? So those people started watching and I had to attract new ones. Is it, you know, because the jump up in my channel again started around the time I said, you know what, I'm just not going to do the Saturday Morning Coffee with Dave, political podcast. I wasn't getting any views from it, and I was concerned that maybe a lot of my it's popular in that half the country probably believes, you know, the same things I do, but in big tech and corporate America and, you know, especially social media, it's less than 2%, you know, are conservative. So it'd be interesting to see. I wish I could get access to that kind of stuff to say, well, why? Was it me stopping talking about politics so then they started suggesting my stuff started coming up more? Because you know that kind of stuff goes on. You see it with the bigger channels, Jordan Peterson, who's got millions of followers, and Steven Crowder, who's 5.8 million followers. I mean, these are people with big followings, but they're dealing with it, and they've got to hire lawyers and, you know, all kinds of stuff to deal with things because, you know, Jordan Peterson called Elliot Page by, you know, her original name, Ellen, and referred to him as a girl, which, you know, she is. She's a girl who chopped off her boobs. And that got him banned from Twitter, and, you know, I reposted a video of his response to CEO of Twitter. Dude, this is an acceleration lane. What are you doing? Go. It's like they wait till they get on the highway and then they're going to accelerate. You are an idiot. Is it a dude? Is it a chick? Man, the bike pulls nice. It pulls really nice. There was a drop in power with my first maps between 6 and 7. I mean, it still pulled, but I felt it was struggling a little bit. So I think between pulling back a little bit of fuel and I actually pulled out about 2 degrees of timing up there, it now just pulls between 6 and 7 much better, much quicker. It gets through that range. So very happy with this map. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see now that I've started and I've done my Saturday morning drive with Dave, or, you know, whatever, just to see, you know, how, if that's basically an experiment to see how it's received, combining riding to see, okay, if it's just me sitting in my office talking about the news of the week versus maybe having an interesting conversation about 1 or 2 topics while I ride, maybe that would be more interesting. And those are getting slightly more views, so maybe that's what I'll do, is I'll skinny down the political stuff, reintroduce it back into the channel, but do it in a limited fashion. So come up and say, all right, here's one topic, here's the big thing for the week, and then we'll just talk about it. I have thought about if there's a way for me to put out a video of, you know, once a week, what does my audience want me to talk about? Do they want me to talk about anything, or they want me to just shut up and do more bike videos or knife videos? I'm fine with whatever. I enjoy doing all this stuff. I just want to make sure that if I do something, it's well received, not because, oh, I have this need for everybody to like me, but if I want to make money on the channel, I don't want to be wasting my time. If nobody gets value out of it, then why do it, you know? Doing it just to hear myself talk isn't necessarily a productive use of my time. So give me your thoughts on that. Oh, and another thing, on the tunes, I talked about how the unrestricting of the gears and playing with the throttle maps was only really through gears 1 through 4. I found out that that was wrong. Yes, everybody, I was wrong. It happens. But in a good way, which means that it is applying the power modes to all the gears. On the old bikes, the way Triumph did the software, they had a separate ETV table for each gear. So on a 2018 Street Triple RS 765, if I go into ETV3, which is sport mode, and I go into ETV1, which is sport mode first gear, and I make my changes and get rid of the restrictions and all that, what it does is when you go to save it, it says, hey, do you want to apply it to these other ETV3 tables? And it gives you N, and 1 will already be grayed out because that's the one you were in, and then it gives you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it was by gear. So when I saw that same thing happening, but only 1 through 4 on the Speed Twin, I was like, they're only letting us do it on the first 4 gears. That is not accurate. Talked to the folks, talked to Tom, the moderator at the Tune ECU forum, and I double-checked. I asked him again, okay, are you sure this is how it works? He said, yes. I confirmed it with Elaine, the guy who writes the software. I asked him the question. This was his answer. So apparently the way Triumph does it now is they group some of the gears together. So ETV3 parentheses 1 is like neutral and first gear, and then parentheses 2 is second gear, and then 5th and 6th are 4th. So they put them into some groups. So as long as you apply it to all the options, even though it only says 1 through 4, it will apply the throttle map changes you make to all the gears. That is confirmed from the person who wrote Tune ECU, so we don't need to worry about that. So for some of you that were like, I don't know if I'm going to do this because I really want the restrictions gone from 5th and 6th, they are. The software just works a little differently now. It doesn't do it by individual gears. They've put them into some groups. So I think neutral and first are their own. Second is its own. Or number 2 is like second and third gear. 3 might be 4th, and then 5th and 6th is, it's something like that. I don't know which ones correspond to which gears, but it almost doesn't matter. On this bike, you're going to apply it to all of them. You don't want any of the gears restricted. If this was a 200 horsepower monster, to where you're like, you know what? I want to tune down first gear a little bit, just so that it's not either looping the bike and killing you, or forcing traction and wheelie control to intervene like non-stop and cut power. That's where, like on a bike like an R1, you might go ahead, let's just stop in the middle of the road, jerk off. You might want to limit the power in gears 1 and 2 on certain bikes, like a Street Fighter V4. It's a 208 horsepower naked bike. That bike is absolutely going to be restricted in the first couple gears. And on bikes like that, it makes sense. On this, give it full power everywhere. Here we are, and I must be near a chicken farm or a pork farm, because goddamn does it stink. Woo! That is ripe. Luckily, you don't have smell-o-vision, so you don't have to smell that. But we're, there's a lot of chicken farms up this 400 corridor. All right, so we're going to go into my favorite little knife shop and see what we see. And I don't know if I'll turn the camera on. I may take a different ride home. Maybe I'll see what the weather looks like. Maybe head up towards the mountains. But anyway, if I don't talk to you later, enjoy. That's it for now.